Greetings, humans. Welcome to week 2. Let me turn off some of the sound so I don't hear echoes of myself bothering myself. Allow myself to introduce myself. I almost went there. It's week 2, everybody, and there's all kinds of fun hijinks going on, things we can discuss and talk about. Here to answer your questions. You can ask me anything. I'll answer. Occasionally give you the correct answers in case you haven't seen some of the news out there. We've got Josh Jacobs ruled out. Odell Beckham ruled out. No, my heavy investment Tyrell Williams just found out he's ruled out as well. A lot of issues going on in San Francisco, whether it's his running back, Raheem Mostert's out, Elijah Mitchell came on strong, Trey Sermon will be back in the mix at some point. Maybe this week, Brandon Ayuk coming off a horrible showing, didn't get a catch in the first game. Trent Sherfield usurping his role. Kyle Shanahan saying this week that just yesterday that Ayuk is not in the doghouse, but, the hamstring has slowed him down. A lot to always figure out with the 49ers and the shenanigans going on. So we'll help you sort through that. Don't know that we'll get clarity on that, right? That's one of the things about this, We have our hoped for, anticipated, desired outcomes. I'll try and talk you through everything logically, where we're at, and not try to overplay anything or hot take you to death on this. I'll leave that to others to do the hot takes, but we'll get you through this stuff and kind of work through it logically as best we can. So full PPR, Julian Brambila would like to know. I hope I said that right, Julian. Full PPR, rest of season, Boyd, Ayuk, Waddle, or Patrick. Some of this is going to be down to roster construction, right? Like I like what the narrow bands I've seen of Waddle. I think Boyd has consistently been a wide receiver 2 over the course of time. I'm a little concerned, right? So just for the record, anything we're concerned about right now has to be put in the context of we've seen one game. We don't know what the hell is going to happen. Everything changes over the course of time. It's week to week. So when you ask me the rest of the season, I would say based on historic production and like looking back through last year, Boyd is going to give you wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 numbers every single week. I'd like to see the Bengals throw the ball more. They only threw it 27 times in the first game. Last year with Joe Burrow at quarterback, they threw it 40 times a game, right? Would love to see that, especially with the addition of Jamar Chase. So I think he's the safe play. I think Waddle has some upside. I still like Ayuk, but we need to see what's going on there, right? I mean, I invested heavily in him. So if you drafted him and, these are roster decisions you're making for the rest of the year now, you're making them too soon, right? Tim Patrick is going to have a role. I think he's a solid play. I don't think he's a frontline player like Boyd or Ayuk or what I hope Ayuk to be. And I think some of these things will normalize as we get into this a little bit and start threading our way through the season. So watch that. But I mean, right now, I like them how you list them. I mean, just in terms of Boyd being the safest play to me, Ayuk, I think, has a lot of upside. I keep looking back to late last year when he was pretty much, they had injuries and attrition, but lousy quarterback play. He was the 3rd most heavily targeted wide receiver down the stretch last season behind a couple guys named Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill, I guess. So I still think the 49ers value him, but I'm not going to let one bad week chase me off, right? So that's kind of where I'm at. If you're not there, I love the upside Waddle showed. I think Patrick is going to be a steady play as long as Jerry Jeudy's out, and that's not going to be the entire year. Jimmy Williams wants to know Sermon, Mitchell, Hasty. Let's talk about it, man. So I think Kyle Shanahan lies all the time. I think one of the more honest things he said was, last week when he said this running back situation is going to change week to week. I think it is as well. Sounds like Sermon will be active this week. I'm still playing Mitchell as a running back 2 this week. And I'm going to see what happens, right? I mean, I think it's a reasonable risk versus reward based on what we saw against Detroit. He looked really good. Eyeball test was passed. I think at some point we're going to see some Trey Sermon, though, right? And I don't know if Hastings should be in the picture, but we saw what he could do at the goal line, and that's irritate you if you have one of those other players in there. This week it should be Mitchell. I don't think you play Sermon this week. I mean, if you have a hunch, by the way, as I throw these things out there, if you have hunches on anybody, play your hunches. Don't play my hunches. You have to look at yourself in the mirror on Monday. So feel free to play hunches. I'm here to talk through things a little bit more logically. and try to get you the information you need to make that best decision. But if your hunch overrides that, and remember, Jeff Wilson's going to be back at some point down the stretch to throw another wrench in this backfield. So it's going to be a mess. I mean, some of what we should look at this is based on draft capital expended, I think. And, if you look at that, Trey Sermon, they've spent some draft capital to get him. So I think they would like to see him do more. I think he's built for that feature type role where we don't think Mitchell is. But running back is a position where opportunity matters more than anything at all, right? We've seen guys every single year. I've played fantasy football. That's like from 1986 on. There's a running back who comes out of nowhere to be super productive, and look no further last year than James Robinson of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, I'm playing Mitchell this week, and then I'm kind of playing it week by week. For people who invested a lot of fab money in him to land him this week, I'm not as confident in the role going forward. Also, he could keep that role going forward. Some of this is on the player, right? So we have to keep that in mind when we're making moves. We see a narrow band of information. We see 2-3 hours on Sunday. The coaching staff and the player, they have an entire work week to demonstrate that they're capable of what they're capable of, how they're preparing, all the things they need to do to be an integral part of an offense or a team over the course of time. And we don't get to see all that. We hear reporting on that. It's always dicey. We've heard a variety of things about Sermon and Ayuk, that there may be some issues or some lack of intensity in practice. We did hear his Sermon, Mike McDaniel's offensive coordinator, say he practiced with more intensity this week. Maybe that was part of the issue. Maybe messages were being sent to open the season, right? That's within the range of possible outcomes. So a lot going on. I hope that kind of set the table for you. One thing that worries me a little bit about Trey Sermon is he doesn't play special teams. I wonder if that didn't have something to do. They brought Trenton Cannon in. He does play special teams, so maybe that alleviates the issue a little bit. But, at some point you have to contribute in other places if you're not contributing to offense, or you run the risk of being inactive. So this week will be a big one for Sermon to see if he can get on the active roster. Terran, Gronk smash. Starting Kittle this week for obvious reasons, but you start Gronk over Mike Williams as a full PPR flex this week. Probably not over Mike Williams. I like him. I like the matchup against Dallas. Liked what the Buccaneers did against that secondary last week. So, and I like what the Chargers offense is doing in general. If you recall, when Joe Lombardi came in as offensive coordinator, one of the things that kind of had us a little enthusiastic was he had mentioned that maybe Mike Williams is ideally suited for that X role that Michael Thomas has played in that offense, right? So we need to see how this plays out a little bit. I think Mike Williams is a capable player. Health has been an issue in the past, but right now he's healthy and he has a great matchup. I'm probably going with him over Gronk. Tampa Bay, things we like about this offense. Tom Brady, every down is passing down, but there's a lot of mouths to feed. So not that there aren't some to feed in for the Chargers, but the high-end mouths to feed. In Tampa, you've got Godwin, Evans, Antonio Brown, Gronk. I think Williams is a little higher at the top of the hierarchy for the Chargers. You've got Eckler. You've got Keenan Allen, always is going to get a ton of targets. But I think Williams is right there as well. So that's probably the slight lean to Williams there. Mike Anderson, Robinson, or Jamal Williams, TD only. Wow. I'm tempted to go Jamal Williams until we see how the workload normalizes for James Robinson. So Mike DeRocco, who covers the Jaguars for ESPN, is of the opinion that week one was a bit of an aberration in that, there were a lot of mistakes and a lot of offensive setbacks, some of them Robinson's even, but just in general, some issues that kept him from playing the full role. I know my co-host on Sirius, Mike Dempsey, has concerns in general that Hyde, being a Urban Meyer guy, is going, from their time together at Ohio State, it's going to have a pretty robust role, or maybe more of a role than we saw any other back have for Jacksonville last year. And that was one of the things that made James Robinson so great was, number one, the clear path to workload. Number two, the will circumstances. I think that part of it is what concerns me about Robinson. So I'm probably leaning Jamal Williams this week. But health is going to be an issue for him. By the way, if you guys haven't heard, there's a website called footballdiehards.com. I apply my trade there, as do many others. We got tons of great content, and part of that is an ongoing, tally of news headlines. So watch for more on Jamal Williams updates later today when the injury report comes out. He's been limited the last couple of days with a chest issue. So is DeAndre Swift, by the way, with his groin. So both those guys, if they're questionable, it wouldn't surprise me. Deuce Staley, the running back coach, said he had no concerns about either of them playing this week. So that being the case, and expecting the Lions to be playing from behind against an angry Green Bay team, I'm going to go ahead and go with Jamal Williams this week. And I'm even in a TD only. I mean, I don't know how much scoring I expect from the Jaguars. Iron Eddie, happy Saturday, Bob. Got to ask, have you checked out the new Maiden yet? I have checked out the songs that were the initial releases. I haven't listened to the full album yet, but I like what I heard so far. They're rock solid, man. They can't do anything wrong. I can go back to 1983 when I discovered Peace of Mind. And it's been fantastic ever since. This is no different. How prolific are they? It's amazing. Who are some great buy low candidates? Everyone who disappointed this week. Ezekiel Elliott. You go right to the top and find those managers of players who came up small. Najee Harris. One day I'll get that right. It's my name. You'd think I would know it by now. Just again, anyone who disappointed this week, right now, go out and find the Antonio Gibson owner of your team in your league and see if you can't make him an offer. Anyone who comes up small any given week, those are all buy low candidates every single week. Play on people's emotions, especially early in the season. Look at the 49ers. Go after Trey Sermon. Go after Brandon Ayuk. Go after any player that came up and failed to meet expectations because people are going to be in their emotions about that. Take advantage of those emotions. Leverage them to your advantage in all cases. And there were a lot of disappointing performances in week one. A lot of people didn't show up that we expected to show up. And conversely, leverage some strong performances to help you manage those trades and get some of those low performers. Daniel Jones. Oh, look, he runs, he throws, sometimes they catch. Whatever. Just, these are the kind of things, especially early in the season, people are, we'll probably see in the question here, there are going to be people close to pushing the panic button on players they shouldn't panic on. We should always keep that broader perspective and look back over the bigger picture. But, not everyone in your league is going to do that, try and take advantage of it. So I would say anybody who disappointed is on my list of players that are potentially buy low candidates. Half point PPR, Devontae Smith or Antonio Brown in my second flex spot, says Paul DeSantis. So I kind of like the Jason Barrett lists San Francisco secondary as a target for Devontae Smith. I'm still going to have a really hard time sitting Antonio Brown in a matchup against the Falcons. And, so I talked about that receiving core a little earlier, and I'm heavily invested in Brown. For one reason, he was the cheapest piece of that puzzle, right? When you were dealing out draft capital, they were. But, his performances, if you go back to last season, I think I write a little bit about this on the site. Go there. It's footballdiehards.com. There's a lot of stuff there, in case I didn't mention. Also, while you're here, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button so the algorithm is happy. Hit the notification bell so you can get all this content all the time. And I'll talk more about the content on the site. But you go back to last year, in the last, 5 games of the season, he was the most heavily targeted Antonio Brown of all the receivers. So I have a hard time sitting him until he proves me otherwise, especially in this matchup. So slight lean to him over Devontae Smith. One flex, Myles Gaskin or Andrea. I'm going to scroll down and look for the rest of this. There it is. Myles Gaskin, Darrell Henderson, Deontay Johnson, and PPR. Might go Darrell Henderson in this one. All right. You got some Colts defenses kind of beat up. It's between Myles Gaskin and Darrell Henderson. I'm probably leaning Henderson on this one myself. I liked what he passed the eyeball test, right, week one. I thought it looked pretty good. Would like to see more. Gaskin, I think, is very Gaskin-esque. I'm going here and just checking our staff rankings. By the way, we have these rankings on our website, footballdiehards.com, where we adjust and update throughout the week. And they also have links to all the latest news for all the players who there's latest news on. It's a really convenient way to keep track of everything at footballdiehards.com. But we have them ranked this week. The algorithm likes them 20 and 21. I'm about the same on that. I would play them. I'd play either of them over the alternative there. So let me scroll back up, get back to where I was. Iron Eddie, full PPR, Chase Edmonds, Corey Davis, or Jacoby Myers. I'm probably going Chase Edmonds on this one against Minnesota. I thought what Edmonds did last week was pretty good. It was a pretty even split in the workload. I would expect that to continue. But I kind of like the way it played out, and I think he's got some good value in the PPR league and going up against the Minnesota defense. Corey Davis concerns me because what are the Patriots going to do? They're going to destroy rookie quarterbacks. They always do. I think only one has won against them in the last since 2013. Tua Tagovailoa won a game against them last year. But other than that, they don't throw a hell of a lot of touchdowns. They don't do a lot of scoring. And how does Bill Belichick achieve this? He attacks the strength of the offense and takes away the things that matter most. And what matters most to Zach Wilson is Corey Davis. I love Corey Davis. I hope he fares well. He's still going to be in some lineups for me this week. By the way, Jacoby Myers has a great matchup as well. I'm just going with the running back angle here. If you went Myers, it wouldn't kill me either. It's a pretty good matchup for him. Damian Jason White, good morning. Full PPR needs someone for a final flex spot. Tyson Williams, Mecole Hardman, or Marquise or Scantling. Valdez Scantling. So I'm going with the running back here. 2 quarterback league, already starting Mahomes and Tyreek. Would I start McColl and Hill would be too much? No, it's not too much. I just don't have a lot of confidence in anybody in that offense not named Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and Patrick Mahomes. So I think you're taking your chance a little bit, but I don't think it's too much. It's a reasonable stack, or stacking is a thing. That's a good offense to stack. And I'm starting Tyson Williams over McColl and MVS. Victor Jones, Antonio Brown, or Debo. That's a pretty close one. I like Debo's role. I wonder if that's how it's going to be. So one of the things we don't want to do is chase points. But sometimes there's a reason those points were there, right? And we chase them. I'm going to give a slight lean to Antonio Brown in this one. Over Debo. Wouldn't talk you out of either of them, but that's kind of my lean there. It's close enough that I'm not going to knock anyone for playing either of them. I think it's well within reason to play either of them. Half point, need 2, Gaskin, Tyson, and Hunt. Probably playing the path to workload here for sure in Gaskin. I think that's a reasonable, kind of a reasonable starting point. So the thing I'm always looking for when you're asking me these questions, I'm going to often answer the players who I know are going to have the football in their hands. Not that I know what they're going to do with it. I just want the opportunities when we're a little sketchy. Tyson Williams, I like slightly over. Look, for some reason, we always hate Kareem Hunt more than we should, right? I think we should probably love him more. Against Houston, I'm probably going to have a slight lean to Hunt on that one. And it's a slight lean. And here's the thing. If Tyson Williams, if I had seen him last week get all the carries or get the, what I expected the J.K. Dobbins share of the workload to be, and that Latavius Murray was like more of a Gus Edwards to Tyson Williams, J.K. Dobbins. I'm getting very convoluted here, aren't I? I would, it seems to me they're both Gus Edwards right now, both Williams and Latavius Murray. They're both almost playing a secondary role. I'd like to see, and to me, Williams looks like he has more juice. I thought Murray started out a little slow, but looked fine as he went on, and obviously he got all the second half work. So that's the concern for me there. I'm going to go with Kareem Hunt and hope he can leverage a really great matchup. By the way, the Kansas City Chiefs, not great at stopping runners in the red zone. So if that's your hunch, it's not far enough apart that I would say that's crazy to play Tyson Williams over Hunt. It's not. I think I have them both ranked as low-end running back twos this week. So there's that. Daniel Ortiz needs 1 flex play. Sermon, Tim Patrick, or Zach Pascal. So I'm loath to chase the Pascal touchdowns. Touchdowns are hard to duplicate. I think there are injury issues for the Colts. Maybe we get some clarity when the inactive announcements are made tomorrow. Michael Pittman and Paris Campbell both turned up as questionable on Friday. That's never a good sign. When players turn up questionable on Friday, the injury, they've worked fully the 2 previous days, and then boom, all of a sudden limited practices. So it's a bit of concern. So if that's the case, I might, if one or both of those guys are down, I'm almost all the way in on Pascal. Either way, it's between him and Tim Patrick. I'm guessing that since this is your flex, you have some flexibility. So maybe you should play this. And I'm leaving Sermon out of this conversation just because you're playing a hunch here. We just don't have enough to go on. Tim Patrick has proven dating back to last year that he's just a pretty solid play, right? And Pascal, I think, will have good weeks. I just, I'd like to see a little better protection for Carson Wentz, that's for sure, before I invest too heavily in this passing attack. But and that is a full PPR. I noticed that, by the way, Daniel. So I'm going Patrick slightly in over Pascal, but maybe your roster construction. If you need a solid floor guy and you have plenty of upside, maybe that's when you go with Patrick. You go with Pascal if you need the upside. So there you have it. Mitchell or Henderson in a half-point PPR. So again, have both of these guys ranked as low-end running back twos. I think you can make an argument. I have Mitchell slightly ahead. I'm probably going to lean Mitchell on that one. I kind of agree with the algorithm a little bit. By the way, if you wonder where I'm looking at these rankings, they're at footballdiehards.com. You can find all kinds of stuff there, including the latest edition of Casey Joyner's injury report / sit start. You can see Brad Cruz, one of the top high stakes players in the country, his sit start for Sunday. Tons of DFS content from myself, John Lobb, the scholar, and his sheet of DraftKings knowledge. Jamie Calandro's killing it with the tournament stacks and the cash plays. Gary Davenport's Shadow Notes, very helpful. Justin Linero's digging in the crates, getting the cheap stuff. Tons of other content, too, from Evan Tarciano and Gary, besides Evan Tarciano and others. Early in the week, we got Matthew Sharon and Drew Phelps doing prop bets, and we got Joe Colana doing free agent stuff early in the week at the site. So check out. We've got stuff going up every day. Plenty for you there to look at. So slight lean to Mitchell in this one, taking my chances. I like the matchup for Henderson as well, just fine. So, and I'd say it's the same answer in a PPR and a half-point PPR for both Victor and Edward. Would I pick Prager up, Mike Anderson wants to know, and drop Gabe Davis in a standard league? Maybe for a 1 week play. I mean, I don't know if Gabe Davis is questionable. I mean, I think he's probably a decent touchdown dart toss every given week, so maybe I find him a little more appealing there. So, I think this is this is almost a personal preference one. They're both in the same range. They're kind of outlier, flex plays that I'd play on an off week. I don't think I start anyone. I do like that Rager seems to be gaining momentum. Maybe that he's higher up on the depth chart. If that's your lean, I could co-sign on that. Jimmy Williams, is it fair to expect an explosion from Green Bay players this week as Tunyon and Viable start in the premium tight end leagues? It is a fair expectation, I think. I mean, look, the Packers in general are a pretty good team, right? And that was a horrible showing. But we see them have these from time to time, usually on a coast, usually on the West Coast, right? They've failed to show up just for the weirdest time. So I do expect them to show up against Detroit this week. At Tunyon, though, the problem for me is when he doesn't score a touchdown, he's always a single digit. I think every single game he hasn't scored a touchdown has been single digits. I saw a piece saying it was less than 5 points, but it just probably depends on your scoring system. And in a tight end premium league, that goes up. So until I see him getting, the problem for him when you drafted him, and the problem, which wasn't really a problem last year because he scored 11 touchdowns, but he did it on 59 targets. That's not enough targets for me to be confident in playing a player. He could get more this season, right? I mean, he certainly earned them. He has a huge, very high catch rate. So there's something to like there, right? In addition to the touchdowns, but touchdowns are the hardest thing to duplicate, the hardest stat to duplicate. So I'm a little concerned there. Still wouldn't be against playing him in a tight end premium league. Andrea, okay, I got that one. Half point for Jamie Shaver needs 2, Drake Gaskin, Antonio Brown. Wow. So Drake suddenly has an opportunity. I'm probably going to play him. I know John Gruden was talking up Peyton Barber. Never has one man done so little with so much, and by that I mean he averages very low yards per carry. He does find the end zone a lot, Peyton Barber, but I'd probably be playing Kenyon Drake given this opportunity. Once I get past Gaskin, I mean, I'm dying to play Antonio Brown in this matchup, but he's one of a handful of players who's going to get targets. If you're playing it safe, Gaskin is a safe play. If you want to play for upside, Antonio Brown is the right play. Steve Lindor, hello, Steve. PPR league, need a super flex and a running back. Choices are Carson Wentz, Damian Harris, and DeAndre Swift. Normally, I'll automatically go with quarterback, but scoring is 30 yards per point and 4 points per TD. I'm still going with quarterback. I'm still going with the guy with the ball in his hands every single time. I do like Damian Harris. I do like DeAndre Swift. I have a hard time not playing a quarterback every single time in a super flex. Even one named Carson Wentz that's getting sacked all the time. It might have some issues at his receiving corps. It gets more interesting. I'm still sticking by it, though. Let's see. Drew Markham. Half point PPR. Pick one. Julio Jones, Corey Davis, Cortland Sutton. Cortland Sutton is my choice. I know it wasn't great last week, right? And we've had a narrative all offseason long that if Teddy Bridgewater got in at quarterback, it was going to be better news for Jerry Jeudy, and maybe it would have been better news for Jerry Jeudy. But Cortland Sutton's a very good player, and I remember talking to Ryan O'Halloran of the Denver Post, who reminds me all the time that last summer when he was healthy before the injuries, Cortland Sutton was by far the best player on the field every single practice. I think he's a really good player. I think dismissing him as just a high point, jump ball kind of player is just being dismissive. He also runs very good routes. He also is big and physical, and more so than Jeudy. So I'm probably not laying off him. I'm not playing Julio Jones until I see a little something. Would it be a reasonable hunch to say, wow, all the flack he's taken from Mike Vrabel and he's ready to come back with a rebound with a vengeance? Yes, I think that's reasonable. Also, I'd like to see the chemistry, though, between he and Ryan Tannehill before I start playing it. Corey Davis, I talked about this earlier. Nothing has changed there since I talked about it earlier. I know people are coming in, so don't mean to be dismissive. But, I expect the Patriots to take away the things that Zach Wilson relies on the most, and Corey Davis has been that. So I'm probably going with Sutton here. Yes, I am going to start calling Nagy Harris. Yes, Najee Harris, Bob Harris. Yes, that is true. And it's entirely possible. I'm very old and easily confused. Elliott, Najee, McLaurin, Thielen, Miles Sanders. Do I trade Sanders for DK Metcalf? Miles Sanders. I would do that if somebody would do that with me, and I would do that because I was drafting DK Metcalf ahead of Miles Sanders. Not that I don't like Miles Sanders. I think, I always argue with the beat writers for the Eagles, and I say I feel like the Eagles don't like Miles Sanders as much as everyone else likes Miles Sanders, and they swear that's not true. But I saw Kenneth Gainwell get some run. You see Boston Scott get occasional run. So I would make that trade, Terrell, if someone would make it with me. Jay-Z, hey, man. Good to see you as well. And also glad to be back. Full PPR, need 2, Robbie Anderson, Cole Beasley, or Kenyon Drake. Worried about Robbie's volumes. Yeah, I'm a little worried about it. Again, don't want to overplay one game, though, right? Kind of looking at the bigger picture, and the bigger picture for Robbie Anderson dates back to his time together with Sam Darnold with the Jets, right? So I'm not ready to give up on that yet. And what he can do. I'm probably playing Drake, though, that being the case. That being said, I'm playing Drake for sure, given the circumstances this week. No Josh Jacobs if you missed it. By the way, if you've missed any of the news, go to footballdiehards.com where you'll find a lot of it. And also, I'll be doing my Saturday injury video here shortly, kind of run you through, give you a little 10-minute overview of what you need to know going into this game. One of those things you need to know is Josh Jacobs out. So Kenyon Drake is in. And if you're worried about Anderson's target and volumes, I don't think it's that crazy to play Cole Beasley. The volume's going to be there. You know what Josh Allen has done in the past against the Miami Dolphins. He tends to he has a great deal of ownership over them, right? So I think it's pretty close. I'm still playing Robbie Anderson. I have him locked in as the wide receiver 3. I think Cole Beasley is, but a little lower end for me. So there you have it. Elliot, so let's see. Any idea of Gio's usage? Week 1 was related to his ankle. Nobody said that, but I think that's not an unreasonable assumption, right? I mean, he had a high ankle sprain. He came off the injury report, but they called it a mile-high ankle sprain. I don't know. I didn't know there was such a thing as a mile-high ankle sprain. He looked fine when he was on the field, though, right? So I'm hoping for more, but it may be a little bit of a process. We saw this last year with the new pieces as they came in. It took time for Gronk and Antonio Brown to get up to speed. I think that Gio Bernard is there for a reason. I have scooped him up in many PPR leagues, hoping for a flex option. I'm not ready to give up for him. Would not drop him for Larry Roundtree at this point. I think there's, we'll have to see how that one plays out. Roundtree did get was the primary guy, it seemed like, when they were with Eckler, but Eckler got a lot of carries, not a lot of targets. Maybe he gets more of both this week, and maybe that second option becomes less relevant under the new coaching staff. I'm going to probably play still DJ Moore over Deebo Samuel. Look, I love what Samuel did last week. I'm not sure I'm not sure that's real yet, right? If you're more convinced about that, I don't blame you. And I think it's like an entirely defendable play to play him this week ahead. So yeah. So I think that's kind of where I'd be at on that. Deebo or Elijah, DJ Moore. Yeah. So I just double check my Moore rankings. Yeah. I think it's entirely defensible to play Deebo over Moore. I think they're right in the same range. So yeah, both running backs too. Sounds like, based on the way you framed your question, that that Deebo's in the question. Seems like you'd like to play him. So again, both of them low end wide receiver twos for me this week. I'd be fine playing either. Steve, another question: PPR flex spot, Deebo or Elijah Mitchell? Probably playing Elijah Mitchell. Tend to play the running backs. And today, we have no reason to believe Elijah Mitchell doesn't come in and have the same role he had last week. We say that knowing this is San Francisco, where things change on a whim. And we expect Trey Sermon to be back. But, I mean, logically, my mind is telling me Elijah Mitchell's the play this week, and then we'll see going forward. So I'd play him over Deebo Samuel, even with that huge game last week for Samuel. Judd's Cam, I'm in a 14-man PPR league and managed to get Elijah Mitchell. Should I start Tyson Williams or Elijah as your running back too? I might give Elijah Mitchell the run this time and see how it plays out. I mean, I think there's, maybe you have just joined. I've kind of run through the situations for both, and kind of the logic dictates, maybe in this case, Elijah Mitchell, and how the game plays out, we'll find out. But for me, clearly the logic dictates Elijah Mitchell over Tyson Williams. Why? Because Tyson Williams seems to be sharing pretty heavily with Latavius Murray. I wonder if we won't even see more of that as Murray becomes more comfortable with the offense. Again, I will say it, Tyson Williams to me looks like he has more juice than Latavius Murray, but Latavius Murray's been around for a while for a reason. He knows what he's doing. Better IR stash, Jeff Wilson or Jerry Jeudy PPR? Jerry Judy's a better stash, I think. I don't know the timetable for Jeff Wilson, and I wonder how long it'll take him to get back into shape, because he's been out since, May or whatever. So that's going to be the issue for me with him. Elijah has more upside this week, but Tyson gets surprised since the Ravens have to score more. That's exactly. See, this is how we need to be thinking. There's a range of outcomes for all these players, and and our decisions have to be based on, for me, I base them more on the logic. But sometimes I play my hunches, right? Because you think, man, this guy is due, or this matchup just appeals to me. These are all well within the range of defendable reasons to do something. And I think this is the perfect example of that. I agree with you on Tyson. I think watching him, the eyeball test, watching him against the Raiders, I just thought he had a little more pop and a little more juice. Clearly, the coaching staff saw something I didn't, because he didn't get a lot of time down the stretch. Elijah Mitchell and James Robinson in a full-point PPR. Says Scott Mueller, I'm going Elijah Mitchell this week. Concerns about James Robinson, I ran through him earlier, and I remind you, Mike Duraco, who covers this team daily for the ESPN, is not as concerned about James Robinson's workload going forward. I am a little bit. My colleague, Mike Dempsey on Sirius, who is in the building every day, he covers the Jags for their flagship radio station as well. That's been his concern all along with James Robinson. He expected to see more of Carlos Hyde than certainly I did. But, the connection to Urban Meyer is the reason why. So let's see how it plays out. I don't think James Robinson is someone you need to move on from. But this week I'm playing Mitchell. Alex, hello. Good to see you here. 7-0 in redraft leagues. Look at you last week. I appreciate it. The cats are great. Appreciate you asking. I got to get the sign up, right? I don't have to ask me about my cat sign. So very kind of you to request that information. Smash the like for Bob, folks. Please do. Love when you hit the like button. Helps the algorithms, gets us a little higher up in the list. Also, let me just say it again, footballdiehards.com. If you're not a subscriber, go there, use promo code Diehards to get a 15% discount, because we love you. And there is literally tons of great information. We've got an ongoing stream of news. I start out every week with my team notes, big chunk information to kind of set the baseline of information for you each week. And then we build on that with the late breaking updates that cover all and focus on all the injuries. But I get into a lot of matchup information there too. Get 30 plus of those every day. We keep up with the injury reports. We have matchup notes. We have 3 sets of rankings for you, including Gary Davenport's IDP tip sheet. Nobody does IDP like Gary. Casey Joyner's sit-start injury report is up every Friday night, Saturday morning. There for you, kind of a rundown. Brad Cruz, one of the best high stakes players in the nation, has his start Sunday edition. He has a Thursday edition as well. John Law with the scholar sheet of DraftKings knowledge. Gary Davenport, the Shadow Knows, does shadow coverage piece. Justin Linero digging into DFS crate, cheap plays. We've got Reginald James doing our commissioner questions. Jamie Calandro, great work with the DFS stuff. He does a tournament stacks, DraftKings cash plays, and he and Jason Brady do a pregame video on Sundays and one on Wednesday nights to kind of set the table for you, see how the slate's going. Drew Phelps working the prop bets for us, Matthew Sharon, Evan Tarciano, Joe Kalana handling the waiver wire stuff early in the week. So tons of good information for you. Tons of stats too. DFS lineup optimizers, DFS ownership percentages, player performance rankings, target data, red zone rushing stats, snap counts, everything you need, including my fantasy GM. So there you go. There's a lot of stuff. You should get some of that. It's very cheap. All right. Thank you, Pedro Arresto. Good to see you again this year. Darnell Mooney is sitting on the waiver wire. Should I drop Terrace Marshall? Can't believe he's sitting on the waiver wire. Yeah, I wouldn't mind having him. I like Terrace Marshall just fine, and I think he's an upside play. I think if you're like me, interested in defined roles, I'm probably going with Mooney and hoping the quarterback changes very soon. Let's see. Long term, says Pedro, sitting on the Patriots D for this week, and I picked up Arizona for next week. We'll drop one after next week. Which one do you think? Arizona seems to have some disruptive playmaking talent and a lousy secondary. So those things combined for the ability for the pass rush to make plays, because teams are going to want to throw the ball, right? They're going to want to throw deep against those cornerbacks, and that pass rush makes some plays. I think the Patriots defense is going to be rock solid, but I think the disruptive force here might be Arizona. So let's see what happens this week. Thoughts on Josh Jacobs? E11 wants to know, and Peyton Barber stepping in. Again, I'm a little skeptical of all things Peyton Barber. He's great near the goal line. He has a nose for the end zone, also has a nose for not carrying the ball very far when they hand it to him. I'm just not an enthusiastic. I'm not enthusiastic. But there's going to be a role this week. John Gruden said it. Said more opportunities. Does that mean enough for me to play him? Probably not. Probably not me. I'm probably still playing Kenyon Drake. But the touchdown possibility is there if you're in an emergency situation. And you had Jacobs, and the only thing available to you is Peyton Barber. I think it's a reasonable emergency pivot. Andrea wants to know if New England defense or San Francisco defense. I'm picking on the quarterback when I'm picking defenses. That's the first thing I'm looking at. Expect New England to do a number on Zach Wilson this week. Steve, one last question for this week for you. PPR wide receiver spot, Mooney, Tim Patrick, or Pittman. Pittman listed as questionable, so even if he's active, you wonder if he'll be, truly full speed. He came up on the injury report Friday after 2 days not on the injury report. That's always a concern for me when people show up late on the injury report. I think Tim Patrick is the safer play. I mean, Mooney, it's a great matchup. He got some targets last week, didn't do a ton with them. I think the Bears will be throwing deeper this week, and that could work in his favor. I think Tim Patrick is a solid floor, maybe Mooney for the upside, hoped for upside at going against Denver. And it's not a horrible matchup for Tim Patrick and the Broncos going against the Jaguars of Jacksonville. Alan Gardner, flex PPR this week. Mike Williams, Melvin Gordon, Kyle Pitts, or Eli Mitchell. I'm going with Elijah Mitchell this week. After that, it'd be a really hard decision for me between Mike Williams and Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon was great last week. His workload was split pretty evenly. And I don't like to do this. I know my serious colleague Mike Dempsey has a problem when you take away that long touchdown run. Well, you can't take it away. He had it. It was a great run. Just like you can't take away Saquon Barkley's 40-plus yard carry we saw. He looked great. The rest of his carries went, though, for like about a yard each, right? So, it wasn't overly impressive, not the the carries that weren't the touchdown run for Gordon. So I love Mike Williams' matchup this week, and I'm in wait-and-see mode on Kyle Pitts and the Falcons' offense in general, not named Calvin Ridley. I'm not overly impressed with what they were doing last week, and I don't think the matchup works in their favor this week. So there you have that. Elijah Mitchell, easy call for me on that one, though. Robert Seeley, half-point PPR, Elijah Mitchell, Chase Evans, or Chase Claypool. Probably going Mitchell on this one again. Again, he is ranked as a solid running back 2 for me this week. I'll run you through the logic again because that's all we have is, he came in, fulfilled a role last week when Raheem Mostert went down with injury. Trey Sermon was unavailable. whether that was because he didn't play special teams, whether he had been practicing with a little less intensity. We've heard he's practicing with more intensity this week. They added a piece on special teams. Maybe none of that matters, and Trey Sermon comes out and is suddenly the big guy. I think until I see that, though, Elijah Mitchell is the piece I'm playing. And on this list, I like Chase Edmonds just fine as well, too. But Elijah Mitchell over Edmonds for me this week. Considering, says, let's see, where did I say? Considering Mike Anderson, considering Matt Ryan, it says, so bad. It is bad. How do you feel about Kyle Pitts moving forward? Top 6? I don't know. I'm loath to decide anything based on one game, especially a lousy game. They need to work on their pass protection. They need to make a more concerted effort to run the football throughout the course of the game. I realize that's not always possible. Game script doesn't allow it. But they got to do a better job of protecting Matt Ryan. That's for sure. So moving forward, I'm still hoping he gets 3. Somebody's having a bad day and is depressed. I'm sorry to hear that. Let me know how I can help you. Dipped. Can't say your name. Sorry about that. That doesn't add to your depression. George, I'm here, though, and I hear you, so holler back if you need me. Hey, Bob, pick one, says George. Julio, DJ Moore, Damian Harris, Deebo Samuel. So I'm playing it safe. I think, and by safe, I mean relatively, unless we hear otherwise. Damian Harris, I think, is still going to get a role similar to what he got last week. Is he on a shorter leash? I guess yes. Helps him that Ramondre Stevenson also fumbled? Yes. And that he's a rookie? Yes. Will we see more J.J. Taylor? Entirely possible. I don't think, though, that either J.J. Taylor or James White is going to turn into the primary back here. One thing, though, the Jets do have a high blitz rate. So, in pass schemes, maybe we'll see less Taylor. James White, a proven pass protector. But in this case, I think Harris is a safe play. Julio is not on the list of plays I'd make here. And if I was deciding between DJ Moore and Deebo Samuel, it'd be a close call. Might lean Samuel this week until we have more evidence that he's not that guy. Flex spot, 1 point PPR, says Jeremy Gessel. Need one, please. Tyson Williams, Tyler Boyd, Jacoby Myers. Probably going Tyson Williams on this one. Wouldn't talk you out of Tyler Boyd. I like Jacoby Myers. I think this is a great matchup as well. Just don't think he's at the same level as Tyler Boyd because of the proven track record. I think at some point Jacoby Myers is a player we need to watch, right, though? Because he is going to play that slot role that the Patriots have made super productive for my entire adult life, and that's been like 1,000 years. So I would keep an eye on Jacoby Myers as well. Tyler Boyd, though, it's easy to forget. This guy's put up wide receiver, solid wide receiver 3 and slightly higher numbers over the course of the last couple seasons. Last year, he was very high end. As long as Joe Burrow was getting those 40 attempts. First game, he got 27 attempts. Joe Mixon was rocking and rolling. So we'll see if that doesn't normalize a little bit. Maybe somewhere in the 30s, would be a better number that would make more production for all 3 of those wide receivers there. And, could be a case where if they don't throw as much, it's going to be one guy every week and maybe a different guy every week. Or maybe the same guy, and it's Jamar Chase. And that wouldn't be good news for Tyler Boyd. But for right now, that's how I'm playing him. Let's see. It's a little bit early after Thursday's performance. Week 3, Antonio gets in at Buffalo. I'm not doing week 3 yet. Okay. Sorry, I don't mean to be short on that. I just can't. It's hard enough thinking about week 2. The fourth dimensional chess is baffling me. Thoughts on Latavius Murray? I think he's a solid. So I think I'd be playing him in the same role I played Gus Edwards in last season. Maybe you're a little worried about the role, but I'm assuming if you're asking about playing him, it's probably because you have a need. I do think he can be viable. He has touchdown upside any given week. So that's kind of where I'm at him. I thought he looked better as the last week went on. I'm not worried about Devonta Freeman. If they elevated Le'Veon Bell this week, I wouldn't be that worried about him either. I think for now, Tyson Williams and Latavius Murray are the players I'd be interested in. And it will be up to Le'Veon Bell or Devonta Freeman to change my mind. Last I've seen them, most recently I've seen them in various stops. I have not seen them be capable of doing that. I will, Pedro. We'll get there. Jonnu Smith, questionable versus Gesicki versus pick up someone else like O'Shaughnessy, Schultz, Troutman. Grab Le'Veon Bell, waste of a roster spot. I don't know if it's a waste of a roster spot. When was the last time he looked good? Did he look good with the Jets? They look okay with Kansas City. I don't know. I just haven't seen the guy, and maybe he doesn't have to be that guy, right? Maybe you're just looking for some volume. I think he's got a ways to go to get some volume. So you might have to hold on to it for a while. The only upside here for you, in my estimation, is running back is such a volatile position and opportunities matter. And apparently in Baltimore, running backs get hurt regularly. So that could work in your favor. Jonnu Smith versus Gesicki. If Jonnu Smith is healthy and playing, I'm playing him over Gesicki. I need Gesicki to turn up the heat a little bit. And one of the worries is I have someone asking me when my YouTube show starts on a message. I don't know. Can't answer your message right now because I'm on the YouTube show. It's a little early, but I have to see, where was I? Yeah, I'm just going to lean towards Jonnu Smith. He's been a little more productive than Hunter Henry. I think both those guys are capable. But until I see Gesicki, one of the concerns for me with Gesicki going in was Chan Gailey's gone. Chan Gailey tended to use him as like a fourth wide receiver, a slot player. And I think it worked in his favor. I don't know how the new coordinators are using him yet, and maybe that needs to normalize. But for right now, I'm going Jonnu Smith. And O'Shaughnessy, I'm probably not going to go that far down. I thought Schultz looked fine. Troutman got the snaps and the targets in week 1, and Juwan Johnson got the touchdown. So, if I'm chasing the targets and the playing time, it's Troutman if I'm playing one of those other guys, but I'm fine playing Jonnu Smith. DJ Moore, Deontay Johnson. Man, Deontay Johnson, all he does is get targets, man. It's hard for me to go away from that. And maybe part of this is you talk to the beat writers who cover that team, and for the last couple of years, they've just been telling me that, Deontay Johnson gets the Antonio Brown role, right? I don't know if we've actually seen that yet, but he gets the targets. So I'm just checking the target numbers from last week. Yeah, I'm probably leaning Deontay Johnson in this one. You guys scrolled down too far. Yeah, probably slightly into Deontay Johnson just for the targets. James Robinson, I'm probably playing Javonte Williams over James Robinson until I see what the actual role is for. I think last year's James Robinson is not coming back. I think Javonte Williams is probably more capable of being that going forward, but I think either of them are not desirable plays until we see this shakeout. So I'm going to go Javonte Williams on this one. Try not to gag. Deep Dynasty need 2, and I'm already behind Gabe Davis, Cedric Wilson, and Peyton Barber. Like Cedric Wilson seems like the only Cowboy who doesn't have a great individual matchup this week, but he does have a role. Gabe Davis is questionable. If he plays, I'd probably go with him, and if not, I'd probably pivot to Wilson. Again, Barber, I know John Gruden's talking him up. I just don't have high expectations for him. They paid a hell of a lot of money to Kenyon Drake. So I'm gonna chase that first. Jesse Claypool, Chenault, or Jacoby Myers, probably in that order. I don't really like Chenault's matchup this week. The Denver secondary is phenomenal. If he's, it's as good as secondary as we've seen for a while. So I'm probably shying away from that. Probably leaning Claypool. Jamie, half point PPR need 2. Drake, Swift, Gaskin. Swift, assuming, if he's questionable today and you're concerned about that and you have worries about taking a 0, you never know if someone's going to get, questionable players. It's nice to have a fallback, right? Especially with the Monday night kickoff. So if that's a concern, or he gets ruled out, the decision is made for you. I'm playing Drake and Swift right now and taking my chances, assuming we don't hear anything more adverse on Swift. Donald Arnold, 4-point TD, need 1. Burrow, Goff, or Mac Jones. I'm probably playing Burrow in this case. Goff was pretty productive last week, and I think he's going to be playing from behind again, which kind of works in our favor, apparently. Doesn't make the weaponry. Thoughts on Gibson going forward versus Darrell Henderson, Tyson Williams? I'm going to still assume Antonio Gibson is the player I drafted him to be, which was, for me, a low-end wide running back 1, high-end 2. I'm not going to let one game put me off too much. Remember, he went into this one, with a little bit of a shoulder issue. Week 1, the workload was fantastic. He wasn't on the final injury report, didn't have an injury designation, but the shoulder was a little bit of an issue. We'll just have to watch that, but I'm not giving up on him. Darrell Henderson, if he continues to play as he did in week 1, and he got a true feature back treatment in that game against the Bears, then he's going to work his way into that conversation with Gibson. And Tyson Williams has a little ways to go to get there in terms of role. And that's kind of, if you have been following me anytime, you know what I like. I like clear path to workload. Opportunity is where all this starts. I can't go out there and control what a player does with the ball when he has it in his hands. But what I can do is have a pretty reasonable expectation for when he will have the ball. And that's why I'm not giving up on a guy like Gibson. I mean, I think in general, the plan is for him to be the feature back, play the lead role. And I know that it was McKissick in the 2-minute and what they call their turbo set. I have talked to people who cover this team daily. It sounds like Gibson is getting work in practice in that, but he's still not the guy there. And there's some issues with pass protection and, how they're doing this. So, I mean, I think it's fair to question that part of his role. But I think if the game script's right, I don't think it's fair to question Gibson's role as the lead back there. I think it's just kind of, a little less rock solid for overall than we thought. But I think in general, you're going to get what you want. Do I think Sony Michel will be fantasy relevant, or is he a hold until Henderson gets injured? That. Or until he learns the playbook. I don't think he's there yet. Jeremy, thank you. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you listening. By the way, he mentioned the pregame show on Sirius. Jeff Manns and I are on every Sunday from 11 to 1 Eastern time. Also, you can listen to the Football Diehards, Mike Dempsey and myself, from 10 to midnight, Monday and Thursdays. You can hear us every Saturday on Fantasy Sports Radio. Those shows are on Fantasy Sports Radio, the pregame Monday and Thursday. Saturday, we do 2 hours from 5 to 7 Eastern time on the Fantasy Channel. That's Channel 87. Then we jump over to Channel 88 and do NFL radio for 3 hours from 8 to 11 on Saturday nights. And then again, do the Sunday pregame show. We also have the live video, the DFS video with Jamie Calandro and Jason Brady on the website. So you can do all those things at the same time. It's fantastic. I recommend it. And also you can catch me on Fantasy Dirt with Michael Fabiano this week on Tuesday. That'll be a semi-regular occurrence throughout the season. Need one, says Jesse. Higgins, Waddle, Callaway, or Antonio Brown. Between Higgins and Antonio Brown for me. I'm trying not to be like totally in the tank for Antonio Brown, but it's hard not to be with this matchup. Let me just check Higgins here. Check the numbers. Yeah, slightly into Antonio Brown. Wouldn't talk you out of either of them. Both of them, So if you check the rankings on the website, the staff rankings, they're very helpful. They give you all the information you need, like in a one-stop shop. You can go check all the updates that are related to any player you might be interested in playing, check the latest injury status, and also where we rank them. But both those guys are ranked as low-end, wide receiver twos. And the thing about this is I don't want to pretend I can predict with that kind of granularity the future, because I can't. But we do a pretty good job in general with our rankings. And so when you have two guys in the same tier, it kind of can come down to personal preference. I have a personal preference for Antonio Brown. Wouldn't knock you if you had yours for Higgins. Hi, Dennis. Mark Ingram and James White on the bench. Should I think about McKissick? I mean, I would not be averse to adding him to the bench. Would I add him over either of those guys? I think longer term, he's a better play than Ingram. I think a little shorter term, he is James White. Or overall, he's James White. So thank you, Scott. I appreciate that. Hunter Henry or Dalton Schultz, half-point PPR. I'm going to go Dalton Schultz. Hunter Henry. I like what Schultz did last week. I had him on my mind a little bit. I kind of invested in Blake Jarwin earlier this year in my best ball drafts. I'm kind of sorry that I did, because Dalton Schultz looks like he'll have a role. I think Jarwin will as well, but kind of split up. Mike Anderson, but this week, Henry for sure for me. What's your feeling about handcuffing? Have Chuba for McCaffrey in one league, Madison for Cook in another, takes up a spot for insurance. It's worth it. Well, I think the times it's worth it are when you know that there's a player that comes in that's going to get a plug-and-play role, right? Not necessarily be able to do the same thing with it. But last year, for instance, Mike Davis, we knew he was going to get the bulk of that role. And what he did with it, he did with it. Some weeks it was great, and some weeks it wasn't. It was rarely Christian McCaffrey great, but he had the role, and I think that's the same for Chuba and Madison. So those are good guys. I have a problem. My problem with handcuffs is they're expensive, and I don't always want to pay the premium. I think in the case of Hubbard, the premium is worth it. In the case of Madison, maybe the jury's still out a little bit. In the case of Pollard, it's not. Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts, I'll play Lamar Jackson. All right, man. We worked through a lot of questions. Once again, I want to thank everyone for coming here. We'll be doing this every Saturday, noon Eastern time. Just take an hour, try and talk through. We're not trying to hype players. We're not trying to do hot takes. We're trying to walk you through some logical steps here and try and understand the range of outcomes, because that's really what this game is about, comparing ranges of outcomes. Because you're surprised to learn that the future is hard to predict. And so we're trying to base this on anticipated workloads, matchups. It's a lot of calculus going on here. And we try and walk you through that and the steps you need to do. We do that on the website as well, Football Diehards. If you're not a subscriber, you should be. You should go and purchase that subscription right now. Use the promo code Diehards to get a 15% discount. All the latest information is available. We have a constant flow of news updates every single week. Tons of DFS content with Jamie Calandro, John Lobb, Justin Lanero, myself, Gary Davenport, tons of other content. Reginald James has a new thing we're doing this year, the Commish. HQ answers commissioner questions or player questions about commissioning issues. Really good stuff. Drew Phelps has started doing some prop bet work for us. We have free agent articles early in the week with Joe Colana, Evan Tarciano, and Matthew Sharon, and some great tools, some of the best tools you'll find out there, including our DFS lineup optimizer. We have our DFS ownership percentages, very handy, player performance rankings, target data, red zone rushing stats, snap counts, sortable fantasy points allowed for, player performance versus opponent, historical trends, all those things that are fantastic things to have if you play the fantasy football. All that running through My Fantasy GM, which will help you monitor and keep up with all your teams, all your free agent needs across a broad range of commissioner platforms. So get some of that. And once again, hit the subscribe button here on the YouTube channel. Hit the like button on the YouTube video. And check back next week. We'll be around. And thank you, Jimmy Williams, for the kind words, and yous as well, Mike. I appreciate you all. And we will talk to you this very time. Well, like an hour earlier than this very time next week. And again, check the site. Tons of other video content. We have a Wednesday night DFS show. We've got John Lobb doing the Line of Scrimmage DFS show. Great stuff there every Saturday morning. I do this Saturday at noon. I'll have a video, recorded video go up to keep you up to date on the injuries. And then we'll have our pregame video with Jamie and Jason every Sunday morning. So check that out. Hit the website. Dial everything up. Promo code Diehards. There's good stuff there. By the way, I forgot to mention Casey Joyner and Brad Cruz doing their stardom sit-ems and Casey's injury report. One more, starting Ronald Jones over James White this week. No, you're not crazy, but you're optimistic. I am too about Ronald Jones. I just don't know that I need to play it until I see it. But James White, I think, is going to be on the field a fair amount against the Jets. They blitz a lot, and they're going to need him in for pass protection. So I'm probably playing Jones, but it's a close call. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you next week.